All right, what's up? How's everybody doing tonight? Tourhead Nordy here with you, sitting with my good friend Stephen Ferdinand, renowned chef, and my old ass friend from government camp in Mount Hood back in the day. We met when he showed up there to start working at Timberline and to start pursuing his early chef career. Developed a great friendship right away and have been friends ever since. Initially kind of touched on us liking the Grateful Dead collectively. Garrick Shue, good friend, knew him a little bit before Steve moved up there. He was a Deadhead too. We have all this history, and today we're going to talk to Steve a little bit about where he got into the Dead, how his dad hooked him up with his first show, which is super ironic, and some of the little bit background shit. But it all leads to Steve and I going back on Dead & Company tour in 2019 and seeing the last, 16 shows, you think?
16 or 18.
Yeah, 16 or 18. All the way to Mexico. So, anyway, with that said, which is kind of my key phrase these days. Ferd, tell us a little bit about how you got the first show, which was in 87?
87.
And your
Dylan
dad...
and the Dead, RFK Stadium. So growing up in the beautiful south central Pennsylvania, you grew up in the D.C. and Baltimore suburbs.
Yeah.
So your first show ends up being D.C. But my dad was a factory worker up in York, Pennsylvania, right on the Mason-Dixon line, and bus trip shows down to RFK for music was part of the summer fun, and absolutely attended one of those for Dylan and the Dead, and that was it. My dad took me to my first show.
Was it like so you guys had good seats, good spot? You don't have to say what company you work for, but you guys had a good in and...
Absolutely, man.
Like,
good seats, front row, taken care of very well. Very nice. Yeah, absolutely, man.
Sick.
Got to see a little bit of the band backstage.
Nice. So you told me a little bit about the fact that your dad was like, he knew that you kind of wanted to see some shows. What other shows did you see with him? Let me back up a little bit, because you saw other shows.
Yeah, first time he ever took me to see music was Steppenwolf. Second time
Sick.
was Crosby, Stills and Nash. And
Sick.
Young, Crosby, Stills and Nash. Like, he's a music fan himself, even to this day.
Hell
The man's
yeah.
80 years old and saw a Grateful Dead tribute band play in Jersey 2 weekends ago.
Without you there.
Without me there.
That's rad.
He's a music man.
I love your dad.
He likes music.
So, you told me that you thought that, like, he might think you might fall for the band and maybe get the fuck out of his house after 18 years.
My dad was a free spirit, and he knew his son was a free spirit, and he knew his friends' kids were going to be at this show, so he kind of put forward the effort to push me out in my way, shall we say.
Nice. That's cool. Were those kids Deadheads, or were they just...
Yeah, I grew up with Deadheads. Actually, you mentioned hippie Garrick Shue.
Yep.
I mean, I grew up with him. He was absolutely,
Menino?
Carl
Menino?
Absolutely. I grew up around this great factory community in Pennsylvania, and a lot of the kids, we all went to school together, and we all kind of migrated together towards the Grateful Dead.
Rad. So when you started branching out and seeing shows on your own, outside of the one that your pops took you to, which I think is the fucking coolest story ever, what did you first start seeing? And
Well, DC was our
your hub, yeah.
Our hub. You could go to the Capitol Center shows and go to high school the next day. So we went to those shows. DC was our hub.
That was Hartford and New Haven for us.
So
that's fucking
so
rad.
DC was. I've seen probably every Capitol Center show since like 1988.
Nice. So, how extensive did you get on tour? Like, you start seeing East Coast shows up and down?
Yeah, East
jumping
Coast.
around?
Start seeing East Coast shows. You start. I grew up on the Mason-Dixon line, so I technically grew up in the South, and we did all the South: Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee.
Nice.
I mean, North
Nice.
Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. Like, that was
Okay.
our domain.
You like I never got to see shows in Georgia. Like, I saw a fuck ton of shows, but there's certain parts of the country that for whatever reason,
Atlanta.
I couldn't get there. Yeah, Hotlanta. I wish I had seen Atlanta shows. Like they were so amazing.
The Omni.
Tell me a little bit about one of your favorite East Coast shows that impacted you back then, before you moved to Mount Hood. Like before you, like, what really set the tone for you?
I'd say the Spectrum, man. Like we used to always blow into the Spectrum in Philadelphia.
Love Philly.
So I would say the Spectrum. You know, got around some friends that were out in New Mexico, and
Fucking love
we're
Philly.
talking about Philly. You know, at the Spectrum, and Lise ran out, packed up the car, and headed out west.
Sick. So, your tour got interrupted a little bit before you got to Mount Hood. Do you want to talk about that, or would you care not to talk about that?
I mean, everybody knows you have to do things that are. Everybody needs to survive, so you know,
Yeah.
when push comes to shove.
Did you have to take a little break from tour?
Absolutely.
Was the bed cold?
Yes. But fortunately, it was shorter than longer. And that experience, you learn a valuable lesson too. You know, you learn about how to take responsibility for your actions, and you learn who your friends are.
Right.
You learn exactly who your friends are in that night.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. So, once you got done with your cigarette rolling degree,
Yes.
in your cold bed,
Yes.
in California state.
Yes. Northern California.
Tell us about what happened when you moved up to Mount Hood.
No, Mount Hood was next. So one of those
And that's where we
infamous
met.
people. Absolutely, where we met with Garrick. Garrick and I did like a JGB tour together, and after my stint, he moved up to Mount Hood, and we kind of corralled there. I mean, back in the '90s.
When did you move there first? What was your first year there? I'm sorry, because I'm a bit vague, but you and I have been good friends since then.
My
so-
first full-time year
Yeah.
was '93, '94.
Okay,
My
cool.
first year in government camp was '91.
Yeah. Okay.
So Garrick, actually, technically Garrick and Matt Hickey. There's Matty too. Matty was another
Yep.
tour head from back
Yep.
east.
Yep.
They went out and did
Matty.
a summer, and then they went back. And then after I went and met them there in government camp. Then I went back to New Mexico. Then we went back full time. So my full time first year was '93.
Rad. Okay. I fucking dig that. So, Ferd and I have all these stories. This is a bit of Ferd's pre-story. The last half of our book pertains to him and I going back on tour, just barging it again after all these years, and just having that collective thought that we really need to fucking go and do it again. And fucking we were having some fucking discussions about whether we should just go or not, and we took like 5 days to decide, and fucking jumped down to Texas, and then saw literally every show from in 2019 on Dead and Company tour, from Dallas all the way to Playing in the Sand in Mexico. So so fucking fun.
I think what's interesting though about you and me is you and I definitely dabbled with the Grateful Dead further. Grateful Dead.
Mhm.
Then it was, what was it? The Dead.
Yep.
Then Further.
Yep. And we saw
Then-
those shows together.
And then Company. So and I think that's very interesting about your and my iteration of it. You were a little bit before my time.
Yep.
In the '80s.
But we still saw some of the same shows, not together.
Correct. But what I think about, what's interesting about this is, you've seen Brett Midland.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen Vince Welnick.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the incarnation when Chimente came in.
Yep.
You've seen Phil exit the band. You've
have.
seen Mayer come into the band, and
I
the
have.
different sounds. And I think that's kind of what is really interesting about that time lapse of transition, because my biggest void was I never really found balance between Vince and Dead and Company.
Right.
So that's
in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
The one
almost
thing
like
that we
days-
did see was the what 2002, 2003
Jimmy
New
Herring.
Year's with Jimmy Herring, and that was amazing. Like one of the most incredible shows ever. That was the beginning of the fantasy sets, I think.
Very different sound,
I think,
though.
but very different sound. Yes, agreed.
Very
So-
different sound.
So, anyway, this was a fun talk with my fucking great homie Ferd. Like, I wanted some of you guys to get an understanding of like where we come from and like how he plays a part in all of the shit that's in the last part of the book, and how we relapsed and went back on tour fucking 30 years later collectively.
Yeah, very interesting.
So anyway, I think we'll just leave it at that. We don't want to make the video too long because, you know, we're probably pushing 15-20 minutes, but, you know, whatever, we're just fucking talking. So Stephen Ferdinand, Ferd on tour on Instagram. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for checking it out. If you like this shit, give us a thumbs up. Fucking do all that shit that you need to do to say you like it. And understand that I appreciate all of you. And it's always fun to share Grateful Dead stories and knowledge. So everyone have a great fucking night, and we will talk to you soon. Ferd on tour. Nordy, good night.
Dude, you know